Mic check, 1, 2, 3, 4. Hot spots and a few.
This is NBC Palm Springs. Breaking news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Daytona Everett. We begin tonight with breaking news. It's day 3 of the Apple Fire as it continues to burn in Cherry Valley. It's now over 20,000 acres and still 0% contained. We're taking a live look at the growing blaze. Multiple evacuation orders are underway in the area. At least 3 structures have been destroyed. No injuries yet have been reported. Officials say this fire has been especially difficult to contain. Much of it is in very steep, rugged hillsides that are not accessible to firefighting vehicles. And we do want to explain you a mishap from earlier today. Fire officials had reported that the blaze was 12% contained this morning. However, they say now that was a technical issue and it has always been 0% contained. We're bringing you live team coverage of the Apple Fire as it continues to grow. Our Olivia Sandusky is live at the site of the fire with the latest details, and Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett is live in studio. He has wind conditions and air quality concerns in effect for Riverside County and the Coachella Valley. Olivia, we'll start with you. What are you seeing down there?
Daytona, dry, hot, gusty winds out here, a little bit different than what I saw the night before. And unfortunately, all around us for miles, just some dry vegetation, especially up this hill. You can see already a lot of burn marks. A lot of this has been charred from all of the vegetation, these flames. Now up at the top of the hill, we're still seeing a lot of smoke. That's carrying for miles. And in fact, it's been seen in Los Angeles, San Diego, Orange County. So this 20,000 acres, of course, a big deal, being seen throughout Southern California. And there are some flames, a lot of fire crews heading into the area, helicopters, one large airplane that's been dumping water, fire retardant, trying to put this out. But you can see from the heavy smoke still in the air, still burning quite rapidly here in Cherry Valley. And the conditions, the vegetation, which is just fuel for this fire, really not making it easy, as you mentioned there. I did speak with some fire crews today, though. They discussed the terrain out here, the steep incline, all of these conditions, and told me what makes this fire so hard to fight.
So we have several things going on here that have to do with the fire behavior. One of them's the weather, right? We have really hot, dry conditions. Our relative humidities are down in the teens. That's usually a critically low, dangerous humidity level. We have winds that are ripping 20 to 30 miles an hour, gusts up to 35. That's going to happen tonight. And then we have the topography. So we have very steep terrain, and we have many, many drainages that all kind of run together in all these different directions. That causes really erratic fire behavior.
So we are smelling a little bit more smoke in the area today, and I know a lot of the residents, a lot of the neighbors are concerned. I've been speaking to them over the weekend, a lot of them saying they're just hoping that their homes are still standing when they're able to head back to them. A lot of them taking their pets in as well, trying to find shelter. Heading to the Beaumont High School, that's where the Red Cross is helping a lot of those families out. I was there yesterday and today, kind of speaking to the families there, learning their stories and hearing what they're most afraid of as this fire continues to burn.
I was actually able to see the flames, yeah. I would say, about a football field away?
I wasn't even home, so I got the call and I rushed home. And by the time I got there, my grandma and all of us were being evacuated.
When the fire started, I evacuated people. And then they told us we had to leave.
You could tell a lot of emotion there. Obviously a very scary situation here in Cherry Valley. The fire crews hoping they'll have some good news for the evacuees over the next couple of days. Over 8,000 of those across the area. So a very intense and big deal. But they did tell us if you do live in the area, whether you're in San Bernardino or you're in Riverside County, if you're dealing with that whitewater fire as well, the best way to learn information about whether you're in evacuation or in a warning is to go on those counties' websites. They'll have the up-to-date information, tell you what you need to do and where you can go to get resources that you may be in need of. Reporting live, Olivia Sandusky, NBC Palm Springs.
All right, thank you, Olivia. She actually just mentioned it a little bit right there. Closer to the Coachella Valley, a separate fire is burning in Whitewater. A dark, hazy view over there. This one is up to 100 acres. Nearly 150 firefighters are on scene, as well as several aircraft attacking this one from above. Evacuations are also underway in the area, which are separate from the evacuations for the Apple fire. We'll continue to update you on the status of this Whitewater fire as well. Turning now to NBC Palm Springs Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett. Mike, what are the conditions looking like as firefighters try to get a handle on these fires? We've seen the smoke shift kind of into the Coachella Valley a little bit.
Daytona, it's one of those situations where very similar to what we were just seeing there from our reporters and from the folks out in the field there today, is that conditions are gusty, but they're not as bad as they could be. And the reason being is the position of the high pressure. The high pressure right now, well, first of all, let's start with this time lapse. This is just incredible. And viewers doing a phenomenal job of sending in photos and helping us stay on top of this story. Very visible from the Coachella Valley, especially on Saturday night as the sun was setting. You could see a lot of those pyrocumulus clouds. Those are clouds that form because the heat rises. Here's another shot from Edom Hill where you can just see that time lapse. Some very dramatic smoke, which, by the way, is visible all the way to Phoenix, Arizona now. This is traveling for hundreds of miles, and the wind is carrying it. But as I was saying earlier, it's actually the position of the high pressure that's, first of all, making us hot and dry. That's actually helping us a little bit. Later on in the season, as we get towards September, the high pressure will usually set up towards our north, and that creates that offshore flow that gets us very gusty and very dry. Because we're reasonably close to the center of the high pressure, it's not particularly gusty out there. We're getting what are called diurnal winds, which is just basically a daily pattern where the atmosphere heats up. We see some of that wind shifting taking place, especially in the passes there. This is Banning, in the area that we're keeping a close eye on, seeing sustained winds in about the 9-10 mile an hour range. But as we go through the rest of the evening here, we put future winds into motion. Let me get those to 6 o'clock tonight. You're keeping an eye on Banning and, of course, the Banning Pass there. Take any one of these numbers and add about 10 to it, and that's where your gusts will be tonight. So as we continue to go through the rest of the night tonight, you see Cabazon close to where that second fire that Daytona was just telling you about. We'll see those winds gusting up to 25, 30 miles an hour, and of course some 40 mile an hour gusts in isolated spots are not out of the question as we go through the rest of the night. This is 8 o'clock tonight. Obviously, the cooler it gets, the calmer it becomes. So as we go into the overnight hours tonight, expecting a lot of these to get back into single digits again before that pattern repeats itself again tomorrow. This is 11 a.m. on Monday, and already seeing those sustained winds back into the teens there, and that's putting gusts into the mid-20s early on Monday. So just to recap there, it looks like it's breezy out there, but not as bad as it would be if the high pressure was further to the north. It's warm out there, 113 degrees currently at Palm Springs International. Light breeze coming in from the north there as well. Because the predominant wind has been to the west and northwest over the last couple of days, we're seeing a lot of the smoke out there. It hasn't necessarily been coming into the Coachella Valley. It's been following that pattern further out towards 29 Palms and out into the open and high desert there. Humidity sitting at 9%. That's not particularly great. It's dry here, and as we were seeing earlier, about 10 to 15% is where we expect those humidities to get to out towards Banning and Cabazon later tonight. Speaking of temperature, our excessive heat warning was stretched out into tonight. It looks like it will expire around 9 o'clock tonight. So if you're wondering if it's still hot out there, well, yeah, it's still hot out there and will stay that way. But as we go over the next couple of days, I got some great news for you. In fact, your Comfort Air 3-day forecast is showing some fantastic news headed our way. 115 is not fantastic, but watch what happens as we go into this first week of August. We'll back that off to 112 on Tuesday, get those overnights back into the 70s, and then finally get temperatures closer to where they should be this time of year. 107 is actually the 30-year average for this time of year. We're going to achieve that on Wednesday, and it gets even better and cooler beyond that. Details on that, your full forecast, and the latest on ICES. I say yes, I still can't pronounce it, out in the Atlantic coming up.
Coronavirus coverage brought to you by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
All right, switching gears to some coronavirus news. The White House Coronavirus Task Force coordinator is warning Americans of a, quote, new phase in the pandemic. Dr. Deborah Birx saying on CNN today the deadly virus is more widespread and moving into rural areas.
We are in a new phase, and that's why I really wanted to make it clear to the American people. But I want to be very clear. What we're seeing today is different from March and April. It is extraordinarily widespread, and that's why we keep saying no matter where you live in America, you need to wear a mask and socially distance, do the personal hygiene pieces. But
the U.S. has reported more coronavirus cases and deaths than any other country. As of today, over 154,000 Americans have died of COVID-19, according to Johns Hopkins University. Here's what our coronavirus numbers look like here in Riverside County in the Coachella Valley. The county has stopped updating numbers on weekends, so these are as of Friday. Over 37,000 cases in Riverside County, nearly 10,000 of those in the Coachella Valley, almost 700 deaths in the county, over 200 of those from the valley. Coming up, we'll have more coverage of the Apple fire. We are taking a live look now at the flames. There we have it. That's a aerial view of the Apple fire. Olivia Sandusky is live there on the ground. And of course, Chief Meteorologist Mike Everett will have his full forecast. Stay with us.
Ahead for us, a wildfire disaster developing out west as the East prepares for a week of dangerous storms, and the controversy over college tuition now that many courses are online only. All ahead on Nightly News.
the world during the pandemic, some countries have imposed nationwide mask requirements and fines for non-compliance. Most are in the $100 to $200 range, but some are much higher. NBC's Ralph Sanchez reports from London.
Hong Kong this week joined the list of places where you face punishment for leaving the house with your face uncovered. The territory is in the midst of what some are calling a third wave of COVID. And city authorities have announced that if you go out without a mask, you'll face a fine the equivalent of $650. Here in Europe, some of the toughest penalties are in Italy, which you'll remember was so hard hit early on in the pandemic. In the Campania region, there's now a $1,200 fine for people who go out without masks and for businesses who let them in. But that's pocket change compared to the situation in the Middle Eastern state of Qatar, where you face a staggering, wait for it, $55,000 fine and potentially up to 3 years in prison. Here in the UK, it's a relatively modest $65 if you're caught without a mask going into a store or getting on public transport. So the big question is, do fines work?
Fines can be a very effective policy tool if in fact there is universal enforcement. And by universal, I don't mean that the mandate is at a federal level, for example, but rather that the monitoring and the punishment is universal.
One comparison experts have made to us is to speeding tickets. Tickets aren't much of a deterrent if people know that they'll get them from speeding on some roads, but not on others. And the same is likely to be true of fines for not wearing a mask. They'll only work if they're applied evenly and applied everywhere. Ralph Sanchez, NBC News, London.
All right, we're taking a live look now from our Walter Clark Highway 111 cam. The smoke, much better in Rancho Mirage, but Mike's going to break it all down for you in your full forecast when we come back. Taking a live look from our Agua Caliente Casino cam. Definitely a hazy look out there today. Many of you have been sending in pictures and videos of what you're seeing around the entire Coachella Valley. A lot of this crazy weather coming in and winds pushing what is the apple fire. Now, this fire has been burning for the past 3 days. We're taking a couple different looks from across the Coachella Valley. It is 20,000 acres and still 0% contained. This is an aerial view of the smoke obviously billowing up into the air. If any of you are walking outside and seeing that smoke, this is where it's coming from. We also have a time lapse that I'd love to show you guys again, just to show the wind that is moving this fire and really spreading it through the entire valley. A lot of people from Yucca Valley saying that they're seeing a lot of this smoke. Just got to be careful when you're going outside. If you are prone to air quality concerns, we definitely want to keep an eye on that. Here's that time lapse I was telling you about. This was taken yesterday from the Southern California Edison camera. You can see the smoke going up and kind of circling around as well. This is close to the valley, and it is just insane out there. Mike is actually here. He's going to break it down a little bit. Mike, we haven't seen a fire like this, I think, since the Cranston fire. It's been a while.
Yeah, thankfully it has been a while. And there's a couple things going for us right now. First of all, when you think about it, we've had a couple of pretty wet winters, especially up in the mountains there. So it's not a lot of dry vegetation. As you can see, it's still burning fairly fluently. The other thing that's going for us as well is the position of the high. I was trying to describe this to you earlier, but it's much easier to do with infrared zoomed way out here. A lot of times, especially as I was mentioning, like in September and October, when we get the ridge that sets up over what's called the Great Basin there near Idaho and Utah, we get that offshore flow, and because we're on the edges of it, we get the gustier winds. The high that we've got right now is almost perfectly on top of us. So very similar to what you experience in a low pressure system. If you're close to the center of circulation, you're not seeing the gustiest winds, and that's actually working to our benefit right now. In fact, the gustiest winds you can see, they're actually off towards Arizona and New Mexico, and then down towards Baja as well. Now it is breezy out there. We're getting that afternoon diurnal breeze that we were talking about earlier. I'll show you that again in a moment. And we're also taking a very close look at Isaias. I'm still not pronouncing it well, but what I can do is show it to you. Now tropical storm status. Sustained winds now getting under that 73-mile-an-hour range. It's still a very powerful storm that's making its way up the coast, possibly making landfall on 11 p.m. on Monday up towards the Carolinas. That's where Cape Hatteras is there as well. Heavy wind and rain lashing the Florida Peninsula. And then folks all the way up towards New York and New Jersey are also on alert for that storm system. Putting Futurecast into motion, you can see very clearly that because it's close to the shore, it doesn't have a very well-developed eye wall, but it is bringing lots of wind and rain there. And again, you can see very clearly that ridge of high pressure keeping us hot and dry. 114 today, 5 degrees below the record, but still 7 degrees above the 30-year average, and we are warm in the overnights as well. As such, we still have our excessive heat warning in place until 9 p.m. tonight, and then it should be allowed to expire. It'll be hot again on Monday, but not enough to issue any watches or warnings. We also have heat advisories in the Inland Empire and down towards San Diego, and then because of the difference in temperature of the air and the water, we've been having some dense fog along the coast. 70 currently in San Diego compared to the 81 that you have just a few miles inland in Los Angeles. Current temperatures across the Coachella Valley right now, 112 in Coachella, 104 in Desert Hot Springs, 105 out towards 29 Palms, and that's where most of this smoke has been blowing, thankfully, out towards the high desert there and then off towards Arizona as well. So even though we're seeing a lot of it here in the Coachella Valley, we're not breathing a lot of it, and that's some very good news. Putting future winds into motion once again, those sustained winds will be in the upper teens, and then by the time we get to about 8 o'clock tonight, we'll start to see those back off. That's kind of a normal signature of the diurnal pattern. We get into the overnight hours, we should be able to get things back down into single digits once again and allow that relative humidity to come up. And that onshore flow along the coast will push some moisture into the base of the mountains tonight, and that'll be helpful for the firefighting effort as well. Hourly temperatures will be slow to cool tonight. We start off warm on Monday. We get hot once again, 115 in Palm Springs, 116 in Indio, 106 in Joshua Tree, and 83 up in Big Bear. Still hot on Monday, but your Comfort Air 7-day forecast shows some relief on the way. Trough of low pressure will sag into Southern California and not only take us down to average, but actually below it as we go into the second half of the week. Overnights return to the 70s.
Honda of the Desert's partnership with Toyota of the Desert in recognizing essential workers is a huge hit. Here's Thalia Hayden recognizing this week's essential employee.
We are about to surprise David Douglas. He is our next essential employee of the week. He has no idea we're coming. There's a trail of people behind me ready to surprise him as well. Here we go. Good morning, David. I'm Thalia Hayden with NBC Palm Springs. How are you? You are our essential employee of the week. Your bosses and coworkers think you're absolutely amazing. We're told you are on the front lines and you work tirelessly here. So we have Toyota of the Desert and Honda of the Desert with a check for you, as well as the fact that you will be featured on our newscast bright and early.
Thank you guys. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled. And I'm just blessed to be here. Thank you guys so much.
So when you saw us coming, what were you thinking?
I didn't know what to think. I was shocked. But thank you guys so much. CVRM is a blessing.
Yeah, we heard you've been here 5 years. And what's your favorite part of the job?
Just saving lives and helping people. You know, I mean, changing lives is what we do here.
David Douglas is a shining example of somebody that just always is there for the people. He just wants to help as many people as he can.
But it was exciting to watch, and somebody like David just on the front line, giving everything he can every single day, and it just feels good that we're able to give back to somebody like that. So
that's the best part about this, right? It feels good. There's, times of negativity and you hear a lot of white noise on TV and different things. It's nice to do something positive, especially right here in the best community in the world. I feel that Coachella Valley just has amazing people and very well-deserved folks.
All right, before we go, we're taking a live look at the Apple fire. When we come back, we'll have a live update from our Olivia Sandusky, who's at the site of the fire. Stay with us.
Hey.
You still can't hear?
No, for some reason the IFB signal is just like shot.
Do you want me to just phone cue you, or cue Dante and he can do it?
He could phone cue. You could phone cue. You could also just, like when Daytona starts talking, you can hear it in the booth, right? I could just leave you on speakerphone, or just leave you up in my. You know what I'm saying? Like I should be able to hear her talking.
I don't think I can put my headset up to my phone. I think it would just be easier to
just
phone
text.
cue either.
Okay.
Yeah, either you or you can just hand the phone to Dante and I can
just
say cue and he can give you a hand cue.
Yeah, just text me and Dante can cue me. Are we?
Keep it on the phone. I'd rather do on the phone than text.
Oh, phone call. I got you. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. And we're about 2 minutes out, or 1 minute out.
About a minute out.
Okay.
Do a 2-box toss and then I'll cue you.
Okay. Dante's got it now. Okay. Okay. He's got no hands already. You can put it off a speaker if you want. So what I'm going to do is just kind of, do you need me to stay up on this ridge and not go down? Okay, so I'm just going to step a little bit and say we've been watching this hot spot. The smoke's moving in. You might want to turn it down.
Welcome back. The Apple fire continues to burn. It's still at over 20,000 acres and 0% containment. Our Olivia Sandusky is live at the site of the fire and has the very latest. Olivia.
Daytona, we have been watching the smoke kind of moving through this area. We are out here in Banning, and you can see the direction really from this hot spots, some flames we had just behind this hill where you can see that fire retardant, that red color all next to that burned hillside. The smoke pushing backwards. That's towards kind of the Coachella Valley area, moving in that direction away from us, away from the 10 freeway. So that's kind of what we're seeing out here right now. Fire crews were driving by just a little bit ago, making sure they're keeping these hot spots under control, because as we've seen, 20,000 acres, and we heard earlier, the conditions out here just kind of prime for fires, really fueling this dry vegetation, these hot temperatures, and these gusts of winds that they said could grow up to 35 miles an hour tonight. So something to watch definitely overnight, as they've been unable to contain any of the fires so far. Don't forget to check for local evacuations with your county this evening. Reporting live in Banning, Olivia Sandusky, NBC Palm Springs.
All right, thank you, Olivia. We're actually following a couple of fires right now. There's another fire in Whitewater where we've sent a crew over there as well. Be sure to tune in at 6 o'clock for updates on that. If we want to take a couple other looks at the apple fire that's burning right now, I know we had some aerial views that were pretty incredible. A lot of that smoke that you're seeing right now is flowing into the Coachella Valley from the apple fire. So we will, of course, update you on that. And this QR code that you're seeing on your screen, you can point your phone camera at it and it'll take you straight to a page with all of the links to our social media. Have a great night.